If a single ancient prayer could send darkness scattering and make demons panic, would you dare to speak it? For centuries, Psalm 91 has been whispered about in hushed tones, recited in the dead of night, guarded like a secret key. Some even claim it's so powerful it's been discouraged or banned in hostile places. Today, you're going to discover the hidden layers of Psalm 91 that most people never hear, and exactly how to use it to protect your mind, your home, and your spirit. Many people feel a strange pressure around them, an energy that seems to push them into fear, anxiety, or even despair. They ask, what can I do? How do I fight something I can't see? Psalm 91 is one of the most potent declarations in all of Scripture, traditionally called a song against attacks, especially spiritual attacks. We'll decode its mystical architecture, and then I'll show you how to align yourself with its protection when you recite it, and why it has been the nightly refuge of the people of Israel for generations. It opens with a mystery. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High. The Hebrew says, Yoshev Beseter Elyon, dwelling in the hidden place of the Elevated One. What is that hidden place? In the language of Kabbalah, it points to the emanation of Keter, the crown, what is beyond understanding and beyond the limits of the natural order. Keter is not just lofty poetry. It is a way of saying that the help you need will sometimes come from above nature, from a plane where logic and cause and effect no longer bind the outcome. When the psalmist speaks from that place, he is telling you, some battles cannot be won by purely natural means. The world is more layered than it seems. There are forces of light and forces of disorder. Angel is not just a metaphor in Scripture. Michael, Gabriel, the messengers who visit Abraham and Lot, the rescuers who move through the book of Daniel. And Scripture also does not shy away from naming forces that oppose, like the adversary in Job. If you have ever felt a fog descend when you want to pray, a sudden heaviness when you try to do good, a fear that has no rational origin, you already know what this psalm is speaking to. Psalm 91 teaches you how to step under a covering that is above circumstance. Reciting it is not superstition, it is alignment. It is stepping into the current of divine intervention, where outcomes no longer obey the limits of your fears. But how do you connect with that higher current in a way that actually moves your life? The great mystic, Rabbi Isaac Luria, the Ari, points out a breathtaking detail. In the original Hebrew, Psalm 91 contains exactly 72 words. You won't see that if you count in translation. It's a property of the Hebrew structure. Why 72? In Kabbalah, 72 corresponds to the 72 names, combinations derived from 3 verses that each contain 72 letters. Those verses, woven together in a precise pattern, form 72 triplets that are understood as channels of divine energy. Each triplet hums at a specific frequency: mercy, courage, cleansing, protection, clarity. When you recite Psalm 91, especially in Hebrew, you resonate with those 72 channels. Even in translation, you touch it. But in the original, the architecture is alive. That is why so many find it worth learning even basic Hebrew, to feel the cadence that the psalm was built on, the letters that, as tradition says, shaped creation itself. Devote focused time, and in surprisingly little time, you can sound out the words that prophets heard. This is why the psalm is not just comforting poetry. It activates, it forms a canopy around you, a dome of protection that repels impurity, static, and spiritual noise. The text even describes the experience in its next image. In the shadow of the Almighty you will lodge. The Hebrew evokes being under the shade or shadow, close enough to feel presence, even if that presence is hidden to your eyes. Shadow means proximity with concealment. It means God is near, but not always in a way that announces itself to your senses. Psalm 121 echoes it. The Eternal is your shade at your right hand. The sages point out a secret. The right side, mystically associated with expansive forces, is also where destructive energies try to press in more aggressively. Shade at your right hand means a cool shield exactly where the heat rises. If you feel like unseen pressure is leaning on you from one side of life, work, relationships, health, this psalm claims that God's nearness gathers there like shade, absorbing what would burn you. And then the promise intensifies. He will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. Angels here are not abstract. Kabbalah preserves the idea that every person is assigned guardians, protective messengers who accompany your journey. Think of Abraham's visitors, Lot's rescuers, the angels in Daniel's trials. Yet there is a sobering truth. These guardians can be weakened by the atmosphere we create. Habitual dishonesty, self-sabotaging desires, ethical lapses, and even corrosive thought patterns can dim the light around us, so to speak. The guardians do not vanish, but they are not as empowered. When you call out with Psalm 91, you are not just reciting ancient words, you are declaring allegiance. You are aligning with the highest, invoking the 72 channels and asking your guardians to rise, to be strengthened, and to surround you like a living wall. Countless people across generations testify that when they speak this psalm with intention, the room feels different, the night is gentler, and the dread recedes. The psalm also reveals why it is so particularly effective. Early on, it brings two divine names into focus, El and Shaddai. Later, another attribute, Elohim, stands behind the justice that restrains harm. Each divine name is a facet of how God relates to the world. Shaddai carries the resonance of enough, as if the Creator says to the seas to hear and no further. Tradition even teaches that Shaddai set boundaries for the waters at creation so they would not flood the earth unbound. When this name is invoked, it is as though a line is drawn around your life. Enough, no further. Elohim, the attribute of justice, is not merely retribution, but rightful order. In Psalm 91, that justice moves on your behalf to restrain the malicious, visible or invisible, who seek to strike when they have no right. When you clutch this psalm to your heart, you are asking that these attributes be marshaled for your protection. Not only spiritual protection, but also physical circumstances, travel, negotiations, daily hazards. It is a complete shield. At the core of the psalm is a healing of fear. You shall not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that prowls in darkness, nor the destruction that lays waste at noonday. The tradition recognizes four archetypal fears here. First, the unknown, the darkness where you cannot see what moves. Second, direct assault, the arrow in plain daylight. Third, disease, the pestilence that creeps where you cannot track it. Fourth, invisible negativity, the calamity at noonday, sudden collapses that seem to strike when everything looks clear. We face these fears in modern dress, panic attacks that appear from nowhere, waves of anxiety, depression that descends like twilight, unseen malice in a workplace, the sudden bad news that makes the noon sun feel like midnight. Psalm 91 counters each of them, not by denying their reality, but by wrapping you in something greater than their reach. It returns you to center when the ground under your feet feels unreliable. This is why in Jewish homes it is common to say this psalm before sleep. Night has its own spiritual weather. The soul feels more exposed to memory and imagination after dark. If your spirit is restless and you cannot name why, recite Psalm 91 slowly, with breath. Feel each phrase settle into you. This is also why many recite it at the start of a new week, upon leaving home for a journey, or when stepping into something uncertain, a project, a conversation, a contract. When you pair your action with this declaration, you are not being superstitious. You are acknowledging that life is more than a sequence of tasks. You are inviting help and you are consenting to protection. Quick note before we go further. Have you ever tried reciting Psalm 91 for several nights in a row? Did you notice a change in your sleep, your dreams, your anxiety, or the atmosphere in your home? Tell me in the comments how it felt and what you experienced. And if this is resonating, tap like so this message reaches more people, and subscribe so you don't miss the deep dives we have coming on the Psalms and the 72 names. Your story might be the encouragement someone else needs tonight. Back to the heart of the practice. How should you recite it? With kavanah, focused intention. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to feel spiritual for it to work. Sit, breathe, and say the words steadily. If you know the Hebrew, pronounce it gently and respectfully. If you do not, use a faithful translation and let the meaning enter you. If possible, learn even a little Hebrew over time so you can taste the cadence the psalm was woven with. Imagine the 72 channels like facets of a diamond. As you read, the light catches on different faces. Protection here, courage there, serenity in another place, until the whole room is laced with quiet. Notice how the Psalms' images build a world around you, a secret shelter, a shadowed refuge, wings arching overhead, a shield and buckler held in front of your chest. Feel the weight of that armor, the firmness of the shield, the cool shade under wings that refuse to fold. Hear the assurance, 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand. It will not come near you. This is not arrogance, it is perspective. You can witness the chaos without being swallowed by it. You can stand in the middle of a storm and know where your anchor is. The psalm even addresses the subtle fear that says, "But what if I am not worthy?" The closing lines give God a voice. "Because he clings to me, I will deliver him. I will set him on high because he knows my name. He will call upon me and I will answer. I am with him in trouble." That is the essence. Not that you are flawless, but that you cling. Clinging reorders reality. I must also address a practical question people ask. Is saying it once enough? Think of Psalm 91 like lighting a lamp in a dark room. One match is powerful, but sustained light comes from returning to the lamp, keeping the oil filled. Many find that a rhythm helps. Recite it nightly before sleep for a week, or morning and night for 40 days if you are in a prolonged battle with fear. Combine the psalm with small acts that align with its power. Remove influences from your space that pull you toward despair or superstition. Keep your word even in small things. Forgive where you can, and ask forgiveness when needed. Each of these shores up the wall of light the psalm builds. There is another subtle key hidden in the text. Language about the shadow hints at God's closeness when he feels concealed. This is not merely poetic, it is instruction. When you do not feel spiritual, when prayer feels flat, say it anyway. Shadow faith is still faith. The Psalm's protection is not a mood. It is a covenantal reality you step under by showing up. And as you show up, the guardians are strengthened. If you have ever sensed that your own attitude weakens your sense of protection through cynicism, self-loathing, or quiet compromise, Psalm 91 is a way to reverse that drift. You are choosing allegiance. You are drawing a boundary with Shaddai's enough. And you are inviting Elohim's justice to stand between you and what would harm you unjustly. In practical life, people use Psalm 91 in a handful of charged moments. Before sleep, to quiet the interior weather. When leaving home, to ask that the roads be held open and safe. At the threshold of a new venture, especially when collaborators or counterparts are unknown, to surround the process with fairness and clarity. In seasons of illness, alongside medical wisdom, to ask that pestilence find no foothold. After a troubling dream or a day heavy with strange pressure, to cut through the fog and reset the atmosphere. Over the years, the testimonies are too many to count. Nights without nightmares after weeks of unrest, sudden calm where panic had gripped for months. a negotiation that miraculously cooled after reading the psalm at dawn. Correlation is not always simple to prove, and yet for millennia, this is the psalm people reach for when they need the impossible. If you are ready for a simple practice, try this. For the next 7 nights, sit before bed and read Psalm 91 aloud, slowly. If you know a transliteration, use it. If you know the Hebrew, all the better. Place a hand on your heart at the line. You are my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. Picture the 72 channels like strands of light, threading a dome over your bed, your doorways, your windows. At the line, he will command his angels concerning you. Imagine 2 luminous figures taking their place at your right and left. And when you reach, you shall not fear, name quietly the fear you are laying down tonight. Then sleep. Note how you wake. If peace arrives, hold it with gratitude. If restlessness persists, keep the rhythm. Sometimes the wall brightens brick by brick. In the end, this may be the most concentrated psalm against fear, against corrosive spiritual influences, against destructive forces that prey on your thoughts. In it are the names that set boundaries, the crown energy that breaks the rules of nature, the guardians who awaken from the edges of your life and move closer. It does not promise that you will never encounter trouble. It promises presence, rescue, and honor in the midst of it, and a long life crowned with salvation. Do not underestimate how far a single, sincere practice can reach. The world may be full of arrows and shadows, but you are not alone in it. Tonight, let Psalm 91 be your hidden place. And when it changes something in you, even if only by a degree, come back and tell us. Someone else waiting in the dark needs that flicker to find their way home.